the Jeep Rescue League, where their passion is history and they preserve it and share it. The original Jeep Rescue League in Saguache, Colorado on Highway 285 in southern Colorado. Saguache is the northern gateway to the San Luis Valley nestled between the Sangre de Cristo and San Juan mountain ranges. This cool little stop is home to 24 vintage Jeeps, give or take, a must-stop for all Jeepers. Terry Gillette is a military veteran who has had a love for Jeeps since he can remember. That love for Jeeps has now turned into his passion. He is always on the lookout for old abandoned Jeeps, which he gathers up and brings them back to his museum to put them on display for all to see. Let's go talk to Terry.
You wonder, what would inspire somebody to get so carried away about all this Jeep stuff? Well, it starts with something like this. When we were kids, they had a program called the Rat Patrol, and it was based on British Special Forces in World War II chasing Rommel around the desert. And there were all these scenes of these Jeeps jumping sand dunes, chasing tanks, shooting machine guns, and it was just, well, when you're 8 or 9 years old, that looks pretty cool. And it leaves an indulging impression. We didn't really know much about history, myself or anybody else at the time, but as we get older and we start finding out the rest of the story, well, this Jeep is pretty much how they were set up to roll. They would take a regular U.S. Army Jeep, strip down anything they didn't think they needed, add as many guns, supplies on them as they can, and go chase tanks around the desert. And they always cut big slots out of the grills so they could repair them in the field. They're out in the desert. They don't need to worry about something running into it, bullet holes or run something into it, whatever they needed to be able to fix those. So they almost always had a water reservoir. They didn't want to lose a drop of fluid out there. So they'd have that, and they'd have that grill, and everything else was whatever the guys could beg, borrow, or steal.
Did you cut that grill?
Yes, I did.
Was that hard?
No.
Well, I would have been like, no, the
What I
slots
did,
are gone.
and this one actually I ordered online. It's an original World War II grill, but it had holes drilled in it, it was busted out, and it was rusted terribly from the backside. So we're not ruining any good piece of equipment. If you had a really good original World War II grill, you'd probably get $7,000 to $1,000 for it.
Wow.
If you find one that somebody else has already destroyed, it's $100. Go with that. That first Jeep that I talked about that we found upside down in a pond outside, this thing over here on the other side of the Weasel was my first Jeep. I bought a quarter-ton trailer, and they threw in this Jeep. It was upside down in a pond.
Which one?
Right here. Now, of course, it would have been all primer colored and nasty looking. For Iowa, where I retired out of, it's really pretty solid. Most everything in Iowa is just rusted to death with the salt, the humidity. I run an antique shop in Iowa for years. When we set that one up, the same as this is with all the accessories on it, people were coming for 50 to 100 miles to see this Army Jeep in the store. It wasn't an Army Jeep, that one. It was just painted to look that way, but people don't normally get to see it. And a little light's going on in my head. There's something to this Jeep stuff. I like them, but everybody does. Anywhere in the world, and if you talk about a Jeep, they'll know what you're talking about. Who'd have thunk it? This was built as a disposable vehicle. Well, you can look online, and there's all kinds of documentation where there's thousands of them that have been pushed in piles, like the planes and the ships and the tanks and everything else, and destroyed. The worst horror I've seen lately is there's footage of divers. I mean, they know where the Navy and those groups would commonly dump all this stuff in the ocean. You can tell by these Jeeps in the ocean floor, they were brand new in the crate Jeeps that had been pushed over the side.
This is what started your addiction?
Passion.
Passion. I like that better. Passion.
Yeah. And this one is actually a 1943 Ford manufactured GPW, or Jeep. Got to be the name, but what people don't realize, there were hundreds of thousands of Jeeps made, and it's arguable, Ford and Willys, it's about a split. They both made hundreds of thousands of them. Most of them went overseas, so to find actual World War II Jeeps is pretty tough in this country, and they're out of them over there. As many as we left, they're now coming to America trying to buy ours up to take them back. Plus side is they're using them for reenacting, and they meticulously restore them. They do an awesome job.
Terry's passion is rescuing one vintage Jeep at a time. We spent the afternoon with him getting to know all of his rescued Jeeps.
38 is basically kind of a crossover between your World War II flat fender and the 38A1. Think that your shovel mounted in the hood?
Oh, that's cool.
It's got the Nash in it. Well, this is a civilian Jeep. It's a CJ3 basically, or Johnny Cash special. I couldn't begin to tell you. This is made by Kaiser Jeep in 1966. So it's a Jeep, so we got to have it.
Does this one still run?
Actually, it runs pretty good. The guy had rebuilt it shortly before he died. It was their hunting vehicle. And they were telling me about it, and they said, oh yeah, it's World War II because it's got the accent shuttle cut off on the driver's side.
Oh.
See, your World War II Jeeps, you can tell right, this is cast, or it's sheet metal right into the body. So if it's got that on there, well, that's kind of it. And there's, the cutouts are here, so it all kind of tucks in there. Yeah. Probably just been open on the back.
And they're probably trying to stay warm.
I mean, for something that was made in '60, it's got a few little dings here and there, and they've added some bling stuff to it.
Look at these lights. They got the, what do you call it, the mall crawler lights?
Now this is a stenciled on Jeep four-wheel drive. Well, look at that. I mean, where are you going to find that still on the back of a vehicle? I mean, you can buy that decal, you can buy the stencil, but there it is, the real deal, still painted out. Usually they're all rusted out through here, or they backed into them, totally destroyed them. It's got a kind of a unique trailer hitch skid plate underneath. If you look underneath at this, it was somebody's homemade deal, but it protects the whole bottom of the gas tank, which was one of the weak links.
You go to these barns? And
Well, they call them barn finds, because that's where a lot of these have really survived. They get tucked away, they're out of the weather, and they get forgot. When I picked up that FC up front, I responded to the ad in the paper, go out there, there's this old ramshackle barn. There's this one sitting outside, and the one that they were started to restore sitting inside. So we crack open up the doors, and not only is that in there, this is in there, and a pickup's in there. So we put gas and battery in this and drive it out. I had found this barn find, which is a 1960 wagon. They pulled it in the barn 30 years ago to change the clutch. Those tires are 30 years old.
this one right here,
This one,
it says Jeep Station Wagon. Is that the JKU of the
that's
time?
a two-wheel drive delivery vehicle, basically. It's what they would have used in town. This was just after the war, so it's kind of an underpowered vehicle. This has had one of their six-cylinder Hurricanes retrofitted into it. The distinctive features, if you look at this front end, see how it just barely has a little bit of a dish to it. It's all but flat.
How many Jeeps are out here actually?
Oh, I'm supposed to keep track?
Yeah.
On a given day, usually about 24. We've got 4 of the M38A1s. I don't know how that happened. It wasn't really by design. There's another one working over there, but there's a 52, a 53, a 54, a 55.
And how long have you been collecting these 24 vehicles?
Well, I brought this one and that one with me from Iowa, and actually this one from Iowa. I've had those for 20 years. The other ones have all pretty much surfaced out here. One of those little ads you see on the vehicle magazines, it showed a little picture of a forward control, and it talked about another one for parts.
What is forward control?
Right over here.
Show me.
Everybody's all excited now about the COES, the cab over engine. Well, there's your Jeep cab over engine. And because it's cab over, well, you have forward controls on your steering. It's all been moved up over the rest of the Jeep. So they had to shift all that forward. First one I ever remember seeing as a kid, if you watch John Wayne's movie Hatari, they had a big 170 flatbed that was their game truck. They would load all the animals captured into crates on that truck. Ramsey and Koenig winches. That's the Ramsey. These are a direct drive. They've got a shaft coming off a power takeoff. The engine runs that winch. So they have unbelievable power.
Oh my gosh, look at this vintage cool Jeep.
Well, if you leave it just a little while, I can get it painted OD green for you so it blends in with the rest of them a little bit more maybe.
So we were outside and now we're going inside. What is in here?
Well, I had run surplus retail and service and things like that for years. This last January I closed it down, and now it is the Gillette collection, which is just miscellaneous vintage vehicles, historical stuff, and inside is Old West, old military, pretty much a museum. I'm finding the kids don't get much in school anymore, so I've preserved a bunch of it, set up displays, and we get enough traffic off this highway that I can get them more in about 30 minutes than you can get in a whole school year. You know, being retired military, worked and all that, it's more rewarding to share that with the kids and get them excited. You don't have to tell them everything. You just have to let them know, hey, gee, guess what? There was a World War I. Then they can look it up. But if they don't even know there was a World War I, can't look it up.
Are these old Jeep toys?
Yep. They're pretty much not mine. Mine didn't really survive the pyrotechnics phase, but
Little did you know, that would have been worth hundreds of dollars.
my mother reminds me of that on a regular basis, what these toys that we destroyed are now worth.
So when did you start this passion?
Well, you know, when we're little kids, we're playing with all of our toys. We're Army toys, and they're little Jeeps and trucks and all that stuff, and the main vehicle of anything was Jeeps. You know, they had G.I. Joe stuff, and as we got older, well, I grew up around the farm, so we got into the four-wheel drive. We used all this stuff pretty aggressively. How that survived, how we survived, I'm not sure, but that really kind of, you know, claims that passion. And then the next thing you know, well, we get out here after I'd retired, and there's cheap stuff everywhere. In the Midwest, it's like I say, it's so humid, they're gone there, and there's more people to destroy them, use them, whatever. Well, out here, they run them till they quit. They push them in a back pasture or push them in an old potato barn, and they'd sit there for the next 30, 40 years.